Good afternoon, class. Today we're going to start off by talking about the relationship between degrees and radians. And so that's what I want you guys to put for your title of this notes section is the relationship between degrees and radians. Now, of course, we are starting off a new section, and many of you guys might know this relationship already. If you don't worry. It's not that tricky. It's really, really similar to converting between miles per hour to kilometers per hour, or inches and centimeters, fluid ounces to grams or milliliters. Really, it's just sort of a conversion process. Now we can actually sort of prove to ourselves, and you can always define, or you can always derive what this relationship is. And all you really need to do is remember that 360 degrees, which is one full revolution in a circle, of course, is going to be equal to 2 pi radians. That's all you really need to know to be able to convert from one to the other. Put a box around that, star it, get this written into your brains. You should never ever forget this, 360 degrees and 2 pi radians. Let me take a step back and give you guys the objective for today. So the objective is going to be, we want to be able to convert between degrees and radians. Converting between degrees and radians, and vice versa. Now going back up here to our 360 degrees is equal to 2 pi radians, you can just start solving, rearranging this equation in order to solve for either the degrees or the radians, the actual unit. So in this case, you're solving for this little degree symbol, or you're solving for this radian unit. And of course, radian is also just known as rad, so 2 pi rad. In order to do that, this is just like a two-step or a one-step algebra equation, depending how you're looking at it. So the first thing you can do is just divide both sides by 2. And you get 180 degrees, which is a half of a circle, half of a circle, is going to be equal to just 1 pi radian, or pi rad. Now if you keep going, right, if you keep solving, you can either isolate the degree or isolate the rad. And so let's start off by isolating the rad. And so we'll divide both sides by pi. And you just come up with radian, rad, is going to be equal to 180 degrees divided by pi. And so this is how we're able to convert from radians to degrees. Go ahead and put a box around this one. This is really important. Convert from radians to degrees. And vice versa, you can either flip this one around itself, or if we wanted to take a step back here, and instead of saying 180 degrees is equal to pi rad, and dividing by pi on both sides, if we divide by 180 on both sides, this might seem a little bit strange, but stick with me, we get effectively just a reciprocal of this. So the same thing is flipped. And so we can say degrees, the little degree symbol, I'm going to put it in parentheses here, is going to be equal to pi over 180 radians, pi over 180 rad. And so go ahead and put a box around this one, and this is how you convert from degrees to radians. And so let's just jump right into a couple quick examples. Now, of course, you can use your calculators for this, but your calculator, every time it comes up with pi, is just going to put in 3.14, so you're going to come up with decimals. That's okay in most situations. I don't want you guys to do that here, though. I want you guys to go ahead and work through the math, and you can use your calculator, just keep the pi's out, and then put the pi's back in, sort of keep track of them, so that your answers should be in the form of pi. So, for example, let's start off with a pretty mellow one. I want you to convert 30 degrees to radians. Put a question mark radians. And so all I really need to do is just take this degrees and multiply it by pi over 180, because right here I'm converting from degrees to radians. Multiply by pi over 180, and that gives me the entire thing, the entire complete answer in radians. So if I just take 30 degrees and I multiply it by pi radians over 180, and you can keep the little degree sign there. That way your units can cancel out, the 2 degree signs cancel. And you just end up with 30 pi over 180. Now you can, of course, reduce this. 30 over 180 just becomes 1 over 6. So you just end up with pi divided by 6 radians. Now, of course, if you were to put this in your calculator, you wouldn't come up with pi over 6. You would come up with some decimal answer, which is what I want you guys to avoid for now. And this will become a little bit more apparent as to why I want you guys to do that once we work through a few more of these problems and we get further in the chapter. Here, problem B, I want you guys to convert 90 degrees into some radians. And so we're going to follow the same steps. So 90 degrees times pi radians divided by 180 degrees. Same thing, units cancel, just like converting from kilometers to miles or whatever. So then we just get 90 pi over 180 radians. Now I'm sure this is really simple. You guys can take a look at this and just realize that, hey, this is just going to be equal to pi over 2 radians. Which is great, because if you know 90 degrees is it's a right angle, it's a sharp turn. Well, pi over 2 radians, so that's also a sharp turn, that's 90 degrees. Finally, letter C, let's go into the area of negatives. So say I have a negative 135 degrees, and I'm also trying to convert it to radians. So I say negative 135 times pi over 180 radians. This is just going to be equal to negative 135 pi divided by 180. Units cancel. And if I simplified this fraction, once again, you could put 135 over 180 into your calculator and come up with a decimal. I want you guys to avoid that. Go ahead and go through the process of simplifying this fraction, and you'll find out that it just comes up to negative 3 pi over 4 radians. Now, we've gone one direction. We've gone from degrees to radians. Now let's go ahead and go back the other direction. Let's go from radians to degrees. So the other example I want us to go through is the reverse direction. So say I'm going from pi over 3 radians, and I'm trying to find out what degrees I've got. Well, if you look at these ones, I was taking the degrees and I was multiplying by pi radians over 180. This one I'm just going to multiply it by that reciprocal. And so I can say pi over 3 radians times 180 degrees divided by pi radians. Now, of course, if I keep things in terms of pi, then the pi start canceling out. So first thing, the radians, the units cancel out there. I've got a pi up top, a pi up bottom, that cancels. And I just end up with 180 degrees over 3, which is just equal to 60 degrees. Nothing to it. Let's roll through a couple more and finish up. So here I've got negative 5 pi over 3 radians. And I'm trying to convert it also. So I say negative 5 pi divided by 3 radians times, and I'm going to use the same conversion here. Now if you can't remember this one, or if you can't remember to flip this one, you can go back into your notes right here and just understand that in order to convert from radians to degrees, I multiply by 180 over pi. And that's exactly the notes we've got here. So convert from radians to degrees, 180 over pi. So here I take 180 degrees over pi radians. And sure enough, the radians cancel and the pi's cancel. And so up top I get negative, I'm going to go through this in a couple steps, negative 5 times 180 divided by 3. And if I simplify this so I can take 180 divided by 3, that's 60 times negative 5. I just end up with negative 300 degrees. Which is a matter, if you guys haven't caught it yet, if you're a super stud, you might have noticed, hey, 60 degrees and negative 300 degrees, these are going to be the exact same measure. Because if I go 60 degrees one way, or if I go negative 300 degrees the other way, I'm going to end up at that same measure. Okay, last one. Now I just need to find out what 1 radian is. What is 1 radian equal to? Now this one's a little bit weird because it doesn't have pi's in it. But what is 1 radian in degrees? If you know this already, you're ahead of the game. So basically I can just take my 1 radian, doing the same conversion process, multiplying it by 180 degrees over pi. And I just end up, pi radians, sorry. And I just end up, I cross out my radians, and I just end up with 1 times 180 over pi, or just 180 degrees over pi. At this point, it would be good to pull out your calculators, and you can find out that 1 radian is equal to 57.3 degrees. Now that's a very special number that'll pop up a lot of the times because we're always converting from radians to degrees. So this would be a good one to remember, a good estimate to remember, just like 3.14, just like E is equal to 2.718. I'll go ahead and draw a line there, and I'll see you guys in class tomorrow.